I guess before we actually get things started, I should ask if anybody can actually hear me this time. Hopefully, the technical difficulties won't persist from last time. If you like react with like an emoji or something, I should be able to. I should be able to tell. Okay. Okay. We're getting the emojis in. Awesome. Okay, so you guys can understand. You can hear me. That's perfect. Very happy to hear that. I am just inviting. Oh, proving. We're just waiting for everybody to get in here.
I can hear you.
Awesome. Okay, you can hear me. I did ask as well, people in the community if they could hear me when I first started things, and told them to react with an emoji, and we got them. So, so far we're off to a good start. Now let's see how this continues. I've also, I know you're invited up as a speaker. I did send a co-host invite, and I've sent a co-host invite to the Atoma account as well, specifically because if there are any technical issues that happen, I think going forward, I'm going to just have at least one other person in the session be co-host, so that if we need to refresh from one person's side, it doesn't just like end the session immediately. So I think we're just waiting for. Maybe I'll send another invite there to Atoma just to make sure. Unless it's supposed to be somebody in. Oh, okay. Hey, all right, awesome. Everybody, I can hear everybody. That's perfect.
Perfect, perfect. Love to hear that. How you guys doing today?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Keeping busy, coming to the end of the week, so no complaints there.
That's good. Yeah, no, 100% for sure. All right. Yeah, no, usually we wait, I guess, a few more minutes. So, I mean, if there's anything that, I don't know if anybody has anything that they wanted to mention, or if we just kind of want to ramble a little bit before we get into things.
Yeah, no, that sounds good to me. I mean, if we wanted to go in some early intros as kind of more people come flocking in, whatever kind of works best with you guys.
Yeah, we've got like what is that, like 15 something people here already. So I mean, doing pretty good to probably honestly even get ourselves a little bit started. But yeah, I feel like intros is completely fine. We always do that at the beginning of the sessions anyway. And oh, I should also mention before we get into things too, if anybody has any questions, we will definitely take questions randomly throughout. We don't have to like wait till the very very end. If we're in the middle of a conversation, obviously we'll like wait a little bit. But we're always more than happy to have you guys ask any questions, related to the partnership, or just even if you've got like I don't know AI questions in general. 100%, like whatever you guys got, don't be afraid to. You can either write them down in the original, like the tweet we posted earlier today, which we have retweeted quite a bit of stuff from Ben today, so you'll probably have to scroll down a little bit to be able to see that. Actually, you know what, to make it easier for you guys, I'll just retweet the session right now so it goes to the top of our page, so you can either comment like there if you're not wanting to get onto the microphone and ask questions, or you can of course request yourself to come up and speak. But yeah, now that we're about like 5 minutes in, I guess we can kind of get things started. I realize that I get everybody else to introduce themselves, but I will quickly start and say that the person behind the Twitter account is me, John Hildebrandt. You guys probably have seen me a little bit around in the community and stuff. And so I figured I would at least, I always get everybody to introduce themselves. I never introduce myself, I was realizing. So yeah, I'm the one who does these like sessions. You probably see me on Talus Tuesdays in the Discord server. And I also sometimes respond to you guys with some interesting questions that you've got on Discord too. But yeah, I'll pass it over to Mike to actually explain what Talus is, and what he who he is as well at Talus, and then we'll pass it over to the Atoma guys to introduce themselves.
John, you're the voice of Talus, man. You gotta keep it up. The godlike voice.
Yeah, I guess I could also add to that yes, I also do any if you see like us on like YouTube Shorts or Instagram, TikTok, whatever it may be, if you have seen any like video content, like it's almost guaranteed like my voice or my face that is behind like a lot of the stuff. So yeah, no pressure, but yeah, voice of Talus, as Mike has said.
Thank you, John. Welcome to the Atoma team. I'm seeing Jorge in the audience, and I guess that's you, Marcus, under the Atoma account. But yeah, I'm Mike. I'm the CEO and founder of Talus. Um, we're building an L1 blockchain for on-chain AI agents. Our main purpose and what we want to enable is the future that everybody will have AI agents in their lives, whether it's for like helping with travel or like solving daily problems, talking to people, sending transactions, payments, driving yourselves to different places. All these things will be completely automated by one or more agents working together. Um, but the main problem is like Web 2 is not built for agents. Um, this means that, for example, every website has a CAPTCHA. You cannot really open a bank account for an agent for it to transact. You have APIs in Web 2 that are completely segregated from one another. They're completely siloed. You have to ask for permission. And then like composing agents, like if you think about like putting Alexa to work together with um, Google's assistant, like that's going to be very complicated. You have to create this extra infrastructure that makes it like tedious for developers and for people who are building agents for themselves. And I do believe that like Web3 and blockchains are completely open infrastructure. As we've seen, they're decentralized, they're composable. You could easily interoperate. Rules are written and they're followed. And then you could basically build these or leverage these tools that we're building to create a future where agents will really thrive and work with one another trustlessly. Talos itself is one. We have our on-chain agentic framework that's enshrined into the network, making it super fast, super easy, scalable environment to run agents. And then we also have other tooling like oracles or tools that these agents could leverage and use even from the Web 2 world to build and orchestrate agents. I think I've said a bunch. So passing it on to you, Marcos. Or if anybody has any questions, just shoot them over.
Hey, thank you so much, Mike. Yeah, I'm Marcus. I'm handling the growth and operations side over at Atoma Network. So at Atoma Network, uh, we've been super excited to be building in the space of crypto and AI for just over a year now. And this is an ecosystem that I think, Mike, you touched on a lot of really exciting portions where crypto lends such a helping hand and such a positive nature to what's capable with AI. And I mean, when you look at the picture of decentralized AI as a whole, you really look at a picture where we're trying to prevent this whole centralization that'll occur and keeping the power of AI within the hands of the few versus the hands of the many. And that's something we've really kind of had at the forefront of our ethos over at Atoma Network. Now, a little bit into my background, I'm currently studying my master's in data science over at Georgia Tech in Atlanta. I came from a very non-technical background at first, but got into data science, and as a whole, had that overlap and interest in AI, especially as the boom kind of began. But yeah, no, it's such an exciting space to be in, and we're so excited to be partnering with you guys at Talus. The whole area of agents, I think, is one that there's such surface level people that have touched into it right now, even like across Web 2, not even just looking at Web 3, but there's so much space, and you guys are killing it, and can't wait to see what you guys keep cooking up. I'm gonna invite George over here again to come up as a speaker in the meantime and have him introduce himself.
Yeah, I was also going to say that a new player has joined the arena. Ben requested to also speak, so I have added Ben as a speaker. So we'll have everybody.
What's going on, y'all? I'm here in Seoul, Korea. It's 1:40 in the morning. We just had our event with Boba Network, Kim Exchange, and Zebu here in downtown Korea or Seoul. Went really well, so I hopped in the Uber. About to fall asleep here, but I had to come support the community. Really excited to be partnering with Atoma. I've said this many times, but when Mike and I were first discussing the opportunities with combining crypto and AI, we saw three really clear opportunities. First one is what we ended up building, which is AI agents being able to buy stuff for you. We think that's the next huge unlock for AI, and makes sense to combine that with crypto for the same reason that we needed payments in crypto. for composability and transparency, verifiability. Data, something with data would be really cool. There are a lot of cool projects working on that. And then inference. Inference is the perfect thing to have for a decentralized network because unlike training, it's not parallelizable. You're working with a smaller data set and it can run on home hardware. So, if you have an old laptop at home, make money with Atoma. Anyway, just wanted to say hi. What's up?
Welcome, Ben. How, dude? Missing you in Korea, man. It's too much of a
Yeah,
time
we're having a good
difference.
time. Mike is going to be coming over to Singapore, and we're going to be having some great events there. But yeah, we've had a great footprint here. Our head of BD, Arjun, is here as well. So a lot of people are getting really excited about Talus, and I think the agent narrative is really taking off. I'm in the Uber right now. My Uber driver doesn't speak English, but he's looking back at me like I think he's trying to tell me he's bullish in his own way. So.
Well, that's great. That's great to hear. Yeah, no, it's that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that the events in Korea have been really great. I mean, I've heard Korea is incredible just as a place to be. So, I mean, that's awesome that you get to go down there and do those events and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like the next step. I mean, if you wanted Jorge to also provide an introduction, I see he's made his way into the session as well. So that'd be great, and then
Yeah.
we can get into like some of the details of we've talked about each other individually. So then after we get an introduction from Jorge, I think it'd be great to really talk about what the partnership entails for the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Super excited. So yeah, I'm George. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Atoma. I have a background in in mathematics. I have a PhD in math. I've been working in the Web3 space for the past 5 years. And before that, after I finished my PhD, I worked as a machine learning engineer for like a US trading firm. So I have the chance to have both like experience in the Web3 and AI spaces in a more technical terms, let's say. And yeah, so last year I co-founded Atoma with Isham, which is also our CEO and co-founder as well. And we are focused on verifiable AI compute. So by this I mean like every AI computation can be inference, can be fine-tuning, embeddings, etc. That can basically you can prove that this computation has not been tampered in any form. And if you think about it, like this is kind of like the core principle of Web3, which is don't trust, verify. And so if you want to kind of extrapolate the Web3 features to AI agents and other tools, etc., we need to have these verifiability guarantees, right? So Atoma is really at the core center of that, like providing available compute, which is cheap, scalable, in a very secure way. And so we are very excited to partner with Talus because like they have a great vision for AI agents, and we, as Mike said, like Web2 is not the right framework to like build agents that can interoperate like between different classes, like for different types of data, different types of frameworks and whatnot. And yeah, we also want to help in that sense. I've known Mike for a year now as well. Mike is a great CEO and founder, a great builder. And I'm super excited, super happy to see you guys at Talus like kicking off and dominating the AI agent space. Super excited.
Yeah, no, thank you for the introduction, and also I do have to say as well because I feel like this is not very much said enough in maybe some people in the kind of AI and blockchain space, maybe things they feel too big for their britches or something. But I do have to say I very much appreciate that in this space, especially with the partners that we've had, everybody is, even if you're an extremely technical person, which obviously, I mean, you have a PhD, I would say you're quite technical. I'm very much appreciative of the fact that you're willing to come out here and have these conversations and even try and break some of this stuff down into more understandable language, because I cannot tell you how difficult it is at some of the places that I've been around in this space to actually have somebody want to even first of all get onto a microphone at all, period, but then to actually talk about some of the more exciting stuff they're working on. That seems so hard to find. So I'm very appreciative that not only here at Talus, but even from you guys, Atoma, our partners, that you guys are willing to come and do stuff like this, because it's always great. I love hearing technical aspects, even if they are like more broken down for my my lesser mind. But I do enjoy hearing stuff about it. So yeah, I mean, and now speaking of going into breaking stuff down a little bit more, I think that the next logical step for us is, as I said earlier, we've went into both, what Talus is, what Atoma is, and you can obviously start to draw some connections there as to how those two things kind of pull together. But I'd like to get kind of both sides, maybe the Atoma point of view and then the Talus point of view. So, Mike, you can take it from our side, and you guys can choose from Atoma. Maybe George would be good, but either way, kind of where this partnership brings Talus and Atoma together, and how does it improve the reliability of AI agents?
Thank you, John. Yeah, that's oh, and Jorge, thank you for those kinds of words, man. I appreciate it, and it's been great to learn by your side as well.
Yeah,
Um,
of course, man.
so I think like the biggest problem that we're going to be facing in the nearest future is when we have decentralized work environments where agents are able to work with one another and talk to one another trustlessly to do work. And by this I mean, for example, my agent wants to work. My agent that does, let's say, sentiment analysis on Twitter, and Jorge's agent that goes and trades based on my sentiment analysis, or the sentiment analysis that my agent does. How does Jorge's agent knows, or can he trust my agent without any type of verifiability and compute? I think as we have hundreds of thousands or billions of agents, millions of agents talking to one another, interacting to create work, it's going to be super important to be able to support this type of verifiability, and to knowing that what an agent is doing is actually what it was supposed to do, or at least programmed to do, and that the output that it's giving to any other agent or any other user or human is the correct output with the right inputs, with the right model that's getting run, and with some type of cryptographic proof that um, everything is correct. If this doesn't happen, we're going to see a lot of like security vulnerabilities and security issues within the crypto AI space. And I guess like Jorge could dive more in detail on how would this work, but my biggest concern, what I've been thinking a lot is, okay, if we want to have these decentralized work environments thriving, where like people could just come and use agents as if they were like smart contracts, and then have agents talk to one another, they need to be able to connect, or even compose in a trustless manner.
Yeah, I think like definitely that's a great overview of like needs for verifiability and security on how how these AI systems work. Just to maybe add a few more words into that, like imagine a situation where, as Mike pointed out, like you have some capital at risk. Like maybe you have put like some funds into your agent wallet, and you want the agent to trade some funds for you. Or maybe you want to buy some new article, but you want to leverage like opportunities on different like geographic arbitrage opportunities, etc. So how can you ensure that like the AI will make the right decision, right? So there are a few aspects that like this is a multidimensional problem, in the sense that first the AI model that you are requesting needs to be like powerful enough, has to be intelligent enough that can perform these actions for you in a completely automatic way, right? Of course, like we need like better models, but over the past few months, we have seen like uh, the best models, AI models, becoming open source and becoming widely available. So I will say that this is not the issue at the moment. On the other hand, you need not only the model, but you need that whoever is running the model for you, right? Whoever you are calling the API is providing you the right answer by the model. Because imagine the following situation: like you have a model that is completely unbiased, is completely like aligned with whatever specifications you want the model to do. Let's say trading, or even like taking political actions for some like political party and whatnot. But imagine that these models are not running; they are running like on some black boxed API service that only the API owners have control of. So even though the models that they claim they are providing might be correct, might be unbiased, they can still run other models that are biased and they can be used for malicious activity, right? And so what Atoma real brings to the table is really like how we can be always ensured, like have the uttermost guarantees that the mod like the outputs being generated by the models are the correct ones, and there is no possible bias, there is no possible like malicious activity. And we can even go to a simpler example where where basically someone can claim that is running like a very large model that is very capable at these specific tests, but in the background they are running a much smaller model and they are therefore like they have much lower costs, but they are still charging fees that are too high, right, for the service that they are providing. And I really believe that this problem set is fundamental for like an AI agent economy that Talus will bring up, right? We want these agents to become more independent. We want to take away the humans in the loop, right? We don't want to spend our lives like looking at what the AI agents are doing, if they are performing well or not. We just want them to do stuff for us. And if you want to take the human from the loop, you really need to have these high guarantees, right? Yeah, I don't know if you guys want to add some thoughts there. If you should like open for questions.
John, can you talk? John, you're muted, by the way. Marcus, can you talk? Jorge, can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely. No, no worries. I don't know what's happening with them.
Probably John got stuck.
Yeah.
It's always happens, man. Like Twitter,
Really? Yeah.
always, always. Give me a sec. Let me ping him.
Yeah, I'm also
No, but
pinging Marcus.
what you were saying makes a lot of sense. I think the biggest things about like verifiable computer, like being able to verify that the model that you're paying for is like the right model that is running, like the same model that is running. So let's say if you're using like ChatGPT, you can't really know what's happening behind the scenes, or if they're running like a micro model or like a cheaper model that would give um so I'd say like inferior results. And then the other thing is knowing that the outputs are untampered, right? Like knowing that, let's say if you ask an AI agent who should you vote for, it would probably say be unbiased or wouldn't be influenced by their creators. And I think as we see
Yeah.
like more and more use cases come to life, that's gonna be like pretty important.
Yeah. I totally agree, especially now that like these AI models are becoming basically like search engines on steroids. Like you ask them for anything, basically, being sure that like no matter what you ask, the answer that you get back actually makes sense for you. I think that's very relevant. And the case that you pinpoint, when you ask like let's say someone has an AI model, who should I vote for? I mean, this is a really deep and powerful question, right? Like these AI models, if they are biased, if they contain like bias in themselves and the outputs that they generate, this can have a big impact on the way that politics will basically get shaped in the future, right? So some of these questions are so important that we really need to, if you want to rely on AI systems in a safe way, we cannot like allow ourselves to basically be in the dark regarding like the quality of the outputs.
Hey guys, I don't want to cut anybody off. I'm just checking. Can you guys hear me now?
Now we can.
Oh, okay. I'm really sorry about that. Yeah, I don't know what's happening. I might need to try and like switch my browser or something because it does this to me almost every session now. But okay, yeah, there we go. It's working again.
Could you hear everything, John, or you had to like drop off?
I had to drop off, so I missed a little bit there for like the last couple minutes.
No, so we were just talking about like the importance of like verifiability in compute and agents, and I was just gonna jump and ask Jorge like, there's obviously different types of compute. We have like, well, different type of verifiable compute coming from different hardware. Each has its own trade-offs. Like TEML, specifically for machine learning, we have like TEML, CKML, OPML. What would you say are like, at least at least within the agent space, what do you think are going to be the one that's going to get used by the most? And do you think that there's a future where like people won't really care about verifiability?
Yeah, so to ask the first question, I think like TEML, where you run these like AI computations within like trusted hardware. So you have like very high guarantees by the hardware providers in combination with some protocols that we developed in house that we call sampling consensus. I think this is like the best, cheapest approach to the problem of verifiability, and can also provide privacy as well, which is also a very crucial feature. But yeah, so I think this is the best course of action. ZKML is very interesting. I have a ZK background, so really want to see more ZKML being developed and built. The issue is that the cost overhead that we have to incur right now is too high, right? And if you want these agents will be like an agent economy. Like imagine like these agents can have like access or can manage like a big chunk of the world GDP, let's say. And if you want to put like 10,000 times overhead on how these agents can, the cost of running these agents, this is a big toll um, on the future of an AI agent economy. But I hope with with future improvements on hardware and ZK algorithms, we'll get closer to something more production ready in ZKML. OPML can work, but I think it cannot. It's difficult to make it work on situations where the latency has where we need to have like very low latency, because OPML requires like this fraud or these challenge windows, right? These periods of time, of fixed time that you need to allow for other like verifiers to check the computations. And so I think for the case of like AI agents, AI agents, they need to perform actions like on real time, right? And I think imposing fraud like challenge periods here will actually downgrade the user experience by a lot. So yeah, I don't think OPML is the right option for this scenario, but there are a few other scenarios where it could make more sense. For the second question, if like users and the people will want to know or like people will care about verifiability, I think my view is that people will care more and more and more about verifiability, especially when these AI models become more autonomous. They become more they start making like more sensitive decisions, taking these decisions that are very important. I think that for any sort of financial situation, this is really, really important, verifiability, because this can basically, if you don't have verifiability, you just open the doors for every possible malicious attacks, right? I can create a model that just like every financial that can be used by an agent that basically like it's optimized to get funds for myself, right? And like we could imagine that, okay, like if this AI model is malicious, like people will be able to kind of get to, like people will just find out, right? We'll be able to pinpoint, okay, this agent has been malicious for a while, so let's just like uh, delete it, right? The problem is that like these AI systems, the way that they evolve, they are being trained, they are trained for these like for these policy functions, and this can be, and when the models become smart enough, they can start to learn how to become malicious in better ways, right? So they can become trustful for a while until you, and then make just like when they have like high reputation, they can start becoming more malicious and actually have like perform actions that can be really, really bad for users, for a whole economy, etc. And it's just on the financial sector, but in many other like domains, it's also very important to have verifiability. I think AI agents will become more and more used for situations where politics, science, socials will become, yeah, it will be more. They will also be very used, and like it's very important for us that we don't rely on black boxes. That's my take. Of course, I mean, if you just want to ask a model what should be your next dog name, maybe you don't need verifiability in that case, and that's fine. I mean, I think verifiability becomes kind of like a spectrum, a continuous spectrum, right? Where there are situations where you need a lot. There are other situations that we just need mild assumptions, and other situations where you don't care at all. The point is, the goal is that we want to build like protocols and systems that can scale and that can become so cheap that paying for more verifiability becomes a no-brainer, right? And so we don't need to kind of like thinking out, like users and agents, etc. don't need to have like these big constraints on verifiability. Verifiability just becomes widely spread, and yeah, that's the main goal. And I think that will just make all like AI systems becoming more trustful, and I think this will contribute massively for thriving societies. Sorry, guys, I go very long on my answers, but yeah.
Yeah, no worries at all. That's like exactly what we kind of want here is to, anything that is actually going to contribute to explaining these concepts to people. I'm sure even the community is able to gain, some useful knowledge about these types of systems. Because I mean, to be fair, we're talking pretty in depth about like two ideas of technology that realistically have not existed in people's, in the mind space of the average person for very long. So although it sometimes feels like you might be talking a lot about it, it's because like this tech is so new that there really isn't like a simpler way of explaining it. Like I've brought up the example before of like, even the idea of cloud storage and stuff. Like nobody has to explain in depth, how Google Drive works or any of those things, because we've kind of just accepted into the regular usage of technology. But there was definitely a time where someone had to pitch the idea of saying, hey, you know how we store all of this stuff locally and it makes it kind of complicated and you can't, carry over data between systems. Like somebody had to, for decades, probably explain and build on that concept. So for, agents and for even verifiable inference, all of these things, they're going to require some explanation until it's just a normal thing, which I assume is the goal in the end, would be to have all of these things so well integrated that you don't even have to explain it to people anymore. They just expect it, which is, I would kind of hope, the direction. that people end up wanting to take. Because I know, Mike, you had mentioned one kind of point a little bit earlier of if there is any possibility that people will even care at some point if something is verified or if it's not, which I think is the kind of state we're currently at. And a lot more people, I think, are starting to turn their attention towards actually caring as they start using these models more frequently. So, yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I don't even know, like, realistically, like, if there's anybody in the community who has any questions related to any of this stuff. Like, I don't know if we've even kind of tried to break down at a basic level to the audience. Maybe it happened while I was gone. But did any of you guys even want to take a crack at trying to, like, explain, like I'm five, what verifiable inference means, just to help people maybe a little bit as well with all of the discussions we've been having?
Yeah, like I think I can take that one. So yeah, so verifiability, it really is about, imagine that you ask me some question, and I give you an answer. It's just like, what is the level of honesty that I'm giving in my answer? I mean, am I being honest or not? And basically, verifiability guarantees that whatever question you ask me, I'm always being honest with my response. It might not be the response you want to hear from me, but at least you have guarantee that I'm always being honest. And now, like, if I'm an AI model, you can ask me everything, and basically you have all the internet condensed knowledge into this model. And I think it's very important that you have like kind of these honest questions from the model. Yeah.
Yeah, that's honestly probably one of the best explanations I've ever heard of that concept before. So if you just thought of that
Yeah.
like on the fly, then that was amazing. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah, it was on the fly.
There you go. You got to
Yeah.
write that down like right now, because that was a great explanation. And yeah, I guess from even that perspective, it makes sense why that information or that way of being able to verify that stuff is important for agents. Because I mean, if agents are going to be able to do things for you, if they're doing things for you based on what a model is telling them, you want to make sure that that agent can be essentially guaranteed that it's being told the truth, even as you said, if it's not exactly what it wants to hear, as long as it's actually getting that information in a verified fashion, it's much better than it just being kind of up to assumption, which
Yeah.
currently I know a lot of agents that exist, whether it's Web 2 or even some in Web 3 as well. Like that is kind of a big up in the air type of thing. Some people might not even know if the agent, what model the agent is using when they're interacting with it, let alone like whether or not the information is actually, verified or not. And would this also, because I might be, completely off my rocker with thinking this, would this also be beneficial for knowing if, let's say, an agent believed that through some form of API, it was working with like the base GPT 4.0 model, but then it actually was one that had been like tampered with, like some developer had actually made a slightly customized version of this model. Would it be able
Yeah.
to help as well with that of verifying to the agent, essentially telling it, by the way, this is not this is what the model actually is?
Yeah. So that's actually a great question. So for open source models, we can have like that. The definite answer is yes, definitely. That's like the main goal. For closed source models, is more difficult because like you don't have any control who is hosting it, right? But yeah, for like any open source model, that's definitely true. I believe that with privacy and when this AI agent economy just unlocks, like even these closed source models, proprietary models, there will be like an economical incentive to make it available for these agents and to potentially make it available in a verifiable way. So like these even big companies might want to have access to this technology that we are developing. But I think you also touched a great point. So I have a great example, um, which I think it's relevant to share here. So I'm a developer, right? So I'm using Cursor. For those that don't know, Cursor is basically like IDE. So it's basically develop like where we can write code, right? It's like VS Code or other tools, but it has like access to AI APIs. So basically, when I'm writing code, I'm being assisted by some AI model. Usually, I'm connected to Claude. And basically I'm writing my code, I'm asking questions about the code, etc. I'm getting like suggestions of what should the next like lines of code could be. So I thought to myself, well, I'm also subscribed to Claude. Like I can interact with their UI interface, even though these are like two different products, right? So I had both Claude on Cursor, and I also had my like native subscription on Anthropic for Claude and like GPT-4, etc. So I just thought to myself, well, instead of me paying like 3 subscriptions, one for Cursor to use Claude, another for Claude, another for ChatGPT, etc., I will just use my Cursor subscription. I will cancel the other two because most of the time in my working hours, I use these AI models for development tools, right, for writing code, etc. So what I realized is, and I mean, I don't have any sort of like factual data that I can. Well, I just have my experience. But what I realized is that since I canceled Claude's subscription, I have still 1 month more of like until the end because I had paid already. But I realized that the answers that I'm getting now are much poorer than they were before I canceled it. So that means that even though I paid for the end of the month, I'm actually suspicious that they have downgraded the service because they know that I will not continue to be a customer, let's say. And also, I was asking a question on my cursor. So I asked a question about code, like what should be done in this way? Is this a good approach to solve this problem? And it gave me an answer. And then I just like copy the same prompt, the code, and I use the Claude interface, and I paste it there, and I asked the same question, and I got like completely different answers. And I was like, well, maybe this is like a great example where verifiability will be great because I'm not sure if like under the backend the same two AI models are being used, right? Maybe one of the answers was generated through a much more powerful model, and that should be the one that I should go for. But if I don't know, then I don't know which one is the best answer because they are like completely different answers. Of course, I'm a human. I know like it's part of my job, so I also have my my own expertise that I can make my decisions on. But imagine that you need like an answer to a question, but using these two models on different interfaces, you get two different responses. And if you don't have like expertise knowledge in that subject, how do you know which one you should pick, right? So yeah, this is just like some personal experience, but I think actually showcase the importance of verifiability in the stack.
Yeah, no, 100% for sure. That does sound like, an important area because as you said, like the best you can realistically get out of that situation is hoping that your educated guess could kind of guide you on, which which answer to go with. But if you don't know those details 100%, which I mean, from the perspective that I see is, like you said, you're obviously well educated and can kind of deduce a lot more of that stuff. But if the average person, just a regular person, was utilizing, an agent of some kind, and that agent or whatever tool they were using had some kind of, model, giving it this information, I highly doubt that the average person would even understand unless they were being outright told like differences that were being shown to them, why it mattered to know what these differences were. I doubt that most people would be able to do that. So having something that actually acts as a layer for you that does that and provides you that information is much easier for the average person than hoping for them to do something. Because I mean, it's proven through all of technology that realistically, the more that you try and ask the consumer or user to try and manually do, like the lower odds there is that they will actually attempt to do that. I mean, there are tons of examples of just people incorrectly using technology all the time. But I mean, in general, the more work someone has to do to be able to use something, the less odds there are of them wanting to continue using that product. So having something that does that work for them, and it's kind of like, okay, well, using an agent by itself could be cool, but using an agent and then also verifying that the data the agent has is at least authentically coming from where they believe it's coming from is a really great thing to have. And I don't know if you had any perspective as well on that, Mike, specifically from like the agent side of things, because I've obviously provided just the basic thing of like, oh, there's like a model that it's just like verifying the basic idea that it is the model that you believe it is. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add to that, but yeah, that's at least my thoughts on why that'd be cool. And I also did want to once again open the floor. If there
No,
is, oh, sorry.
I was muted when I was talking.
Oh,
um,
I'm sorry.
no, but I think you guys put it well together. Like, and I don't want to repeat too much, but it's like the description that you gave about verifiability, Jorge, where you say being able to attest, or I don't want to say like verify because it's redundant, but being able to have a guarantee that the user is being honest, or that the compute provider is being honest, whether you like the output or not, because eventually, or I think a lot of the outputs that these agents and these models will have are probabilistic, so they won't be the same all the time. So you definitely need to have this kind of like margin of difference where you'll have like different outputs. Um, but what I wanna highlight here is like when you have a bunch of agents working together, it really becomes super important, and especially when you're like paying for stuff. And like Jorge, you mentioned the example where you're like paying for Claude in one platform and you stop paying, and then you go and you use Cursor. Like you stop getting the same guarantees or the same results after like providing inputs. And I think like as you have agents talk to one another, it's and you remove the human out of the loop, it's going to be as equally as important, because how do you know that your agent is providing the right output to another agent and vice versa? And if you include payments or transactions within them, money is being flown around and somebody has to be at stake for it.
Yeah, I can jump in there relating to kind of that question you provoked. I think it's really interesting there to like look at like the different degrees of and like different kind of consequences that it can associate depending on like model risk as well as like malicious intent behind an agent or model itself, right? Like you spoke on financial risk there, which is something that we've considered quite a bit, right? We've chatted with several like folks in the DeFi end, including our partners at Frax Finance, and something that became very apparent is that there's an interest to eventually utilize, several agents to automate several flows, whether it be on the back end of the DeFi kind of protocol itself, like things like stablecoin management or liquidity management, or on the user end, whether it be helping them with portfolio management or simply like, trading funds or anything on that front, right? So there's a lot of different avenues, but that whole level of financial risk is something that's very important to be aware of. And it's something that we took into a lot of large consideration as well, because with our approach at Atoma with sampling consensus, we allow for this level of like elastic verifiability so that, we are aware on like that higher end of needing the highest degree of verifiability, we have things like in the DeFi and where there's financial risk. So for that, through our sampling consensus, we're able to sample more nodes to ensure that you have the highest degree of verifiability for said task. But we're also aware there's going to be times like whether it be something as simple with like Cursor, and you wanted to ensure you're getting the right model and getting your value there, or some folks who've been chatting on the gaming end and ensuring that the NPC in your game that the agent is behind is going to be, not messing up any of the speech and everything's going to be proper. Um, that's a lower degree of verification required than that of managing funds themselves, right? And that's one thing that's like really interesting to consider from a user end with something like verifiable inference is what degree of verification do I need? And that's the question we want to pose, because it's not a one size fits all solution, right? And that's something we are very aware of, and it was really important to us when we built the solution we have.
John, are you there?
Yeah, sorry. I saw the icon in the corner again. It did in fact try and cut off my audio again, but I figured it out this time, so I was able to quickly get it.
There we
But yeah,
go.
yeah, no, I think that that's honestly that is where when you start adding up basically all of the different areas that require to have this form of verification involved with utilizing something like AI, it really just paints a picture of one why the current space as it is with AI has obviously its flaws in how a lot of things are utilizing it, because I know that at the end of the day, even a lot of AI applications that are being used are realistically just utilizing other models that exist. Maybe they've slightly tweaked them, probably not though, and they're just utilizing from some kind of host that exists, and then all of that information is then being put into who knows how many different apps, and it's not ever really disclosed what things are being used, what model is being run, whether the information is actually, once again, like verified. And so I think that when we come into the space of even for the agents, once again, if there's the potential that a financial decision is being utilized based off of data specifically, you're always wanting to make sure that, because it's not always going to be even like just a basic LLM for example. There's obviously been models that are specifically made for, hey, here's like a ton of financial data that it has and knows how to be able to execute on strategies and whatnot. All of those things all around these other areas, it would be essentially impossible, or maybe not impossible, but very untrustworthy on the other side of the spectrum to try and do something like that outside of Web3. Because even if something tells you, like there are, funny enough, in tech, there are a lot of these, like, I don't know, certification stickers or little badges or trophy things that people will have on their websites of, oh, like these guys said that like we did this like really well, or that we're top rated for blah blah blah. But obviously, like at the end of the day, those things don't mean really anything when it comes to actual utilization of something. So when you're actually using something, having real time, proof that it is actually doing what it says that it's doing is something that everybody should realistically want, even if it's not put in their face, that it's happening. I still think that it is very, very useful to be able to have within this space, especially as it continues to grow. Because, yeah, like I said, if the entire point of Web3 is to improve upon Web2, giving control, giving knowledge, giving access back to the hands of people instead of just individual entities and stuff. If anything, the evolution of Web 3 is going to require Web 2 to either act or just adapt. And that adaptation is going to be them needing to accept these kind of pillars that are being put up by a lot of companies, even like ourselves and you guys at Atoma. These are things that I think are going to be extremely necessary going into the future.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that end. I think it's really interesting when you look at it from like the two different perspectives and two different natures of how the internet is perceived, right? Because when you even look at it like tying into the whole AI layer on top of what Web3 exists, when you look at how people utilize things like GPT, Claude, or even like Perplexity in the current day, it's pretty much like an extension of what they were using Google for, like as a search engine or any search engine in the past, right? It's just a more optimized version of a search engine for a lot of people for very early tasks. And I like read a lot of forum posts, and a lot of people have been mentioning that as a whole is like when they're utilizing a lot of these just simple large language models, they no longer are like mindlessly searching for something that they're trying to find. It's a lot easier for them to navigate as the large language model guides them through that. Now, where that's really exciting to us and as a whole is like it shapes this whole idea of how we kind of perceive um, kind of the future of the internet and how we kind of access and interact with everything rather than us kind of navigating it through like a little bit helplessly and kind of going through there. We believe agents and models are going to be really there to kind of guide us to where we want to go and what we need to do. And I think you're seeing that with like a lot of these power users who are able to optimize various large language models and agents to really like increase their productivity like 2-3x. Like it's really impressive, and I think like you're seeing it's not even like a widespread thing yet. You're only seeing it in like more niche, heavy tech communities. Like I was reading a few things the other day, that it's like a really, the high power users that are like developers themselves in SF have been like having insane productivity increase by being able to leverage AI in this manner. Whereas when you look at it from the people who aren't using it, you see that their productivity is at a decreased state. And the whole kind of principle of where I'm talking about this as a whole is that it's important that this technology is really available and trusted by everyone, and is never in a position to where it's like, yeah, we're going to restrict it to the top half, or who knows if OpenAI ends up releasing like a new frontier model, but they don't want to release it to the public, right? We'll never know, and that would all be behind the scenes because of the central authority behind it. In a decentralized manner, decentralized system, and why we're so pro open source with the models, everyone has access to it. Whether or not it's costly to run, you still have access to it. I don't think, like, I can't run a 405 billion model on my local machine, but through the use of various platforms that have decentralized compute, I'm able to use that. So that's kind of the picture we see that, and completely agree with your guys' stance on the whole reaction to the ecosystem.
Yeah. Also, I just wanted to like quickly cut in here and say that I know that Mike does have to get going now. We've been running for almost an hour. We can start to wrap things up, but I just wanted to provide Mike an opportunity to hop off if he needs to now, before we continue with anything else.
Yeah, thank you, John, thank you, Jorge. I do gotta hop off, but it's been great chatting and looking forward to building some trustless and verifiable agents with you guys.
Yeah.
So looking forward, and let's keep chatting. And thank you everybody for coming on board and hearing us out. It's great to always have you.
Thanks, Mike. This was great. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Mike. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Take care. Bye.
Yep.
But yeah, what I was gonna say in response to what you were kind of just mentioning there too, is that yeah, like I think that that is realistically going to be a good thing because sure, like you mentioned, there's not gonna be people who like yourself, you can't run like a 4 billion model like on your own computer. I mean, who am I to say? Maybe there's there's probably people who might have some pretty insane hardware themselves. But the fact that somebody could be able to do that is kind of where it's very impressive that we're kind of at this point in time. I think if you had told somebody, even just like, I don't know, 5 years ago, I want to say 10, but like if you told somebody 5 years ago that there would even be an opportunity, even a chance to be able to do something of this caliber, just because they want to, and it's not like a limitation of, oh, like this, only the big companies have access to a model like this. I have no chance of ever being able to do that. The fact that it can happen means 100% there will be people who are doing this on their own hardware that they pay for. And I think that that's just really cool. And not only that, I know this kind of strays away a little bit from just that part, but I think it's awesome, the idea that because it's possible, it means that there will be other developers who then say, okay, well, how much can we basically chop away at this model, make it a little bit more refined, and then make it so that it's kind of a niche model instead of the original base it started as, and make it, instead of it being even a billion, point model, let's get it down to like 500 million. Let's see if we can get like even lower and only have like the essentials for a specific niche type of task, and have a ton of those little models that are able to be run. Of course, that also can tie into if you had more niche models that were smaller, less hardware intensive to be able to utilize, and all of that stuff, it would make it so, even for agents would be able to have specific models that they could utilize for specific tasks. But then also, like I said, it provides even more opportunities. And we spoke a little bit about this concept with one of our other partners as well, where it kind of does open up a lot more opportunities for, like, let's say you just that concept in itself. If you were to be somebody who worked at Google and you said, hey guys, I want to spend my time making 100 niche models for these specific, very ultra specific use cases, that people within this space, and this space would be able to utilize. Are you guys cool with me doing that and spending my time like that? There's no chance that they would do that, because they want everything to be as generalized as possible. It's why we have stuff like Gemini, because they want to have it on everybody's phone. If you're not making something that everybody will utilize, they don't want it to be built because they don't care about it. It's a waste of time and money for them. But other developers will not be seeing it that way, and the opportunity to even get funded in the Web3 space to build hyper-specific models that are then easier to run on personal hardware and then easier to run through agents, which then again someone needs to verify that those things are actually running as they claim to be running and that they are what they claim they are. So that is kind of a cool future that I am looking forward to, is we are at this point where there are gigantic models where if you really had the hardware, you could do it. But I'm more excited for when we start getting into the niche stuff, when we actually start getting more of these less complex models that are focused on specific use cases. I think that will be a time when agents can really boom. And also, once again, for what you guys are building at Atoma, there's going to need to be a layer to verify all of these niche models are doing what they claim that they're doing.
Yeah, no, completely agree with you on that end, right? Like, I think there's a time and place for all different models. Like, I think these much larger generalized models do serve great purposes. For say someone who just wants it for general specific tasks or to replace what they're currently using, as like going back to the search engine example. But I think like, and we're even seeing it right now. Like a lot of people who are fine tuning or using RAG techniques on models to either enhance the model's kind of database of knowledge, or as well as on the other side, like fine tuning just to ensure like it fits specific uses cases to a better degree. You're seeing a lot of these people play around with it, like for most recently the 3.18 billion model, which is the smallest of that new level of llama models, but it's still quite effective. And I think from what I was looking at on benchmarks, you're looking at that 3.18 billion model being on par from the previous generation 70 billion model. So if we're at a stage right now where, if in terms of benchmark tests, that these smaller and cheaper models are performing to the more expensive degrees of the previous generation, like let's just say we saw it at the same degree here, we'd be seeing next generation's like 70 billion model performing at this generation's 405 billion. Now, obviously, that's considering a constant state of constant rate of change, which likely isn't the case. But if that is the case, you're still able to be in a position to where you're going to be having access to these very smart models that are, at an affordable rate. And like you said, when you're able to actually optimize them for these agentic use cases, and you're in a position to where you're going to able to fine tune or utilize RAG to ensure that the knowledge base is focused on said specific tasks, whether that be gaming, DeFi, certain specific research topics, you name it. Like, there's a lot of doors that get open there, and like we're still at the very early stage of the adoption curve. Like, if you look at the numbers, the amount of people even like utilizing AI tools as a whole, it's still quite large, but it's not to the degree that we're actually seeing that we potentially anticipate because of the kind of echo chamber we're in a little bit, right? Like, I think all of us been working in AI for so long, we're so used to seeing so much buzz, so much of everyone using it. But I mean, even go out and talk to family members and stuff like that, and then see how many of them are actively utilizing AI on a daily basis. And that's just because the approachability isn't there yet, or perhaps they don't necessarily see the exact use cases which can be brought forward. And as agentic use cases come about, that's that whole next layer.
Yeah, I actually think it's funny that you even mentioned that about going and asking people. Actually, one of the videos we did for Talus was I actually did go out in public in my small city here in Canada, and I was asking people questions about AI, basically just doing like a street interview style of thing, and it was actually very surprisingly difficult. At least it was kind of like more eye opening to me, because you see these numbers of, I remember when ChatGPT launched its actual interface, as ChatGPT, and not just because for years they had already been producing models, but then they opened up the actual, like, hey, you can just like type in things and it gives you responses and whatnot. And I remember how big of a thing it was, where they were like, they achieved like 1 million users in like 24 hours or whatever. I think it was 1 million users in 24 hours. And then now the numbers are closer to like 100 million or something like that. And it sounds like a huge amount of people, but then like I have to remind myself that there's like 8 billion people on the planet. and the odds that it was actually 100 million users and not just like, or not 100 million users, sorry, like a million at first and then 100 million. It's more so also, people probably utilizing even multiple emails to log in and utilize their ChatGPT for certain things and other things like that. And also in general, there's just a lot more people in tech who are willing to use it. And so it was very interesting when I did find people who were, in my smaller city who were utilizing it, saying, yeah, I like use it for, if there's somebody says like a more complicated sentence or word or a thing that I don't really understand, then I just utilize that to go and ask it some questions. Or I've made like a spreadsheet for work, like one person had said. So that kind of stuff is pretty interesting. At least from my perspective of like, yeah, there's not a whole ton of people that are 100% utilizing this on a regular basis outside of probably the niche. So yeah, I think it's cool that the ability for adoption is 1,000% still there. And I mean, you had mentioned llama as well. I am very happy to hear that it's doing as well as it is and that it's performing as well as it is, because I mean, like a year ago there was an interview with Sam Altman, and he outright made the claim that open source models would never catch up to the abilities or even come close to the abilities of closed source ones. And he basically just marked it up to, because money is in the closed source ones and no developer worth his like weight in salt would spend time working on something that was open source. And I thought that was absolutely insane, because that's definitely not the case with a lot of other technologies. There are a ton of technologies that are used probably even by OpenAI developers that are open source by themselves, used by massive companies and even small developers alike. But yeah, no, I think that access to more of these models as they come out, access to more diversity and all of this will be a little bit more interesting, because then it'll actually apply to certain people. I think that's mainly the reason that would probably hold certain people back from, oh, why haven't you used AI? It's probably for a lot of people, it's just like, well, I mean, it's too complicated still to use, or this and that. Because even with trying to prompt at this point in time, unless you're like really in it, you can get some pretty terrible responses from models at this point in time. And even some of the suggested prompts don't always work that well. But there'll be some random person from a place you've never heard of that is like, hey, I have documented a 12-page thing on exactly how to prompt to get exactly what you want. So we're obviously still not like at a perfected stage where it's even easy for just like the average person to use. I think once we cross that threshold, we'll really be can be able to consider it a lot more mainstream. But until I hear that my grandma has been able to utilize ChatGPT for the first time, I think we still we still have a long way to go.
Completely agree with that. Completely agree with that. There's still definitely a lot of ground to catch up on, and it's going to be an exciting time as we kind of move forward onto that.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, it's I know we've been at it for quite some time now, and I've been rambling a little bit with some of this stuff. I do enjoy the conversations and hearing other people's perspectives, even from other teams, about these types of things. So it's always awesome to be able to have that through these Twitter Spaces sessions. But yeah, I think that unless there's anybody in the audience who wanted to quickly come up and say anything or ask any questions related to the partnership or just the AI stuff we've been talking about in general, we can at least probably start wrapping up. Because yeah, we've been at it for just over an hour now, and I massively appreciate, as I said earlier, you guys coming on and talking with our community, and even the explanation, George, that you provided earlier of AI inference and stuff like that. I love, as I said, if I mean, I know I can't remember who the quote was from, but it's the thing about basically saying that if you're not able to explain to like a school like kid basically what it is that you are creating or what it is that you're doing, then you're not truly an expert yet. And so I think that being able to on the fly come up with such a great way of explaining AI inference was really, really awesome. And I do really appreciate, as I said, you guys coming on and being able to discuss this type of stuff with our community. Because I mean, that's the only way for us to continue to have people want to use this stuff is to educate them. So once again, huge thank you to both of you guys for coming on here, Marcus and George, and hopefully we can have you guys on in a future session. That would be really awesome.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic, and thank you so much for hosting.
So much. Yeah, this was amazing. Thank you so much for the kind words as well. Really appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah, no, it's we're more than happy to have you guys on. So yeah, thank you guys for coming on. Thank you, of course, to the audience for coming on and listening to us live. And just so that anybody who is wondering what this session's the code word is, or code word, sorry, is for this session, I believe it should be someone has moved where it was. I was tagged in this earlier. I apologize. I'm going to delay you guys a little bit a little bit longer. Okay. The keyword for everybody here is going to be Talus for all. That is no spaces in between, no capital letters, just Talus for all for our community members waiting for the key phrase. But yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for coming on. And then also thank you to the community for listening in, or if you're listening to this after the fact. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week with the little of it that is left before we get into the weekend. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys again soon.
Take care, everyone. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, take care. Bye-bye. Cheers.